Hi everyone! This week I thought I'd share with you the 4 most surprising things that I found since living in my tiny house, and that's been, got to count, that's been 6 months now. So let's have a look at those 4 most surprising things. So I think that number 1 was just how easy it was to adapt to tiny house living. Prior to moving into my tiny house, I owned an apartment on the Gold Coast here in Queensland, Australia. 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, you know, normal kind of apartment. And then as a bit of a tester, once I sold the apartment, I shared a house with a family and I had 1 bedroom. So for me, that was a way to bring down the space just to see how I go. So when I moved into my tiny house, this seemed really spacious to me. So in terms of adapting to a small space, it was actually really easy. I think also because I went to see the house several times while it was being built, so I got to have a better feel for it as well. If you are someone who is not sure about how much space you would feel comfortable in, I would strongly suggest that you spend a weekend or a week in a tiny house, you know, perhaps an Airbnb or something, and just test out for you, is it enough space for me to be able to adapt to live in permanently? I really think that the second thing was how I realised that I don't need as much stuff as I thought that I did. When I sold my apartment, I gave away or donated or sold, I'm going to say about 75 to 80% of my possessions. Partly because, of course, I know they weren't going to fit inside a tiny house. And for me, some of that was really difficult, letting go of things that I thought were important when in fact they weren't. I've since realised in the last 6 months living in the tiny that stuff just isn't important. What is important is about experiences and family and love. It's not about owning things. With all of that stuff that I gave away, donated, sold or whatever, I haven't missed one single thing of that, not one, in all of this time. So clearly it wasn't as important to me as I thought. Not that I necessarily live a minimalist lifestyle, because I don't, but I am just now aware that I don't need so many things to live a happy life. So one of the things that I did notice is that a tiny house looks dirtier far quicker than a bigger house. I think the reason for that is in a bigger house, if you get, you know, 1 or 2 leaves or some bits of dirt that come in on the bottom of your shoes when you go in and out, in a bigger space, it doesn't look much, but in a really small space, a couple of leaves and some dirt off the bottom of your shoes actually shows up quite a lot. So it gets dirty, or it looks dirtier much quicker, but heck, to clean it up literally takes 10 minutes. I get the stick vac thing out, I do some vacuuming, voila, it's done. I think that the number 4 thing for me is really about money, and everyone is going to be different in this respect, depending upon what your income is and what your expenses are. But for me, living in the tiny house, it is a surprise how much less stress I have over money now than I did before. When I owned the apartment, I had mortgage, I had body corp, water rates, you know, council rates, all of that stuff, and it was a massive amount. And it was no more a percentage of my income than probably many other families and people throughout Australia. I don't want to be like many other families around Australia, or indeed the world, who are suffering with mortgage stress, who can't go and do little things because there's just not enough money to go and do other little exciting things. I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want my apartment to own me instead of me owning my apartment. So since selling my apartment, I own my house outright, and I only pay out a small amount each week for the rental of the land on which my house sits. I have no rates to pay, I have no body corp to pay, I have no mortgage to pay, I own it. Well, I did the budget before I moved into the tiny house, so I knew that I would have a better amount of income versus outgoings. What has surprised me is how much that lowered stress is so empowering. Without all of that stress that I had before, I just feel healthier. I feel more vibrant, and I feel more free. So, my peeps, those are the 4 surprising things for me that I found since moving into my tiny house 6 months ago. And what an amazing journey it's been. And I love my house so much, and I love the freedom that it brings me as well. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe below if you would like to catch up a bit more. I'd love to have you around. Thanks for watching so much. Take care, everyone. Love you lots. Bye from me.